Hey everyone, welcome to our podcast. This is my story where we talk about the weird reality of rad. If you're one of our loyal listeners, welcome back. If you're new to our podcast, welcome here. Either way, it's great to have you join us here today. This podcast is all about interviews with parents, kids, and professionals who come to share their stories with us on a wide range of their experiences, anything from the craziest happenings to their parenting journeys to their journeys of healing. Today is Tuesday, June 2nd, and this is our 14th episode. Today we are beginning a special 3-part series on the topic of brainwave optimization, and we have Joanne Couture here from Laloba Services in Winnipeg. She is a brainwave optimization technologist, and she's going to share with us in this episode what brainwave optimization is, how the sessions are run, how it helps the brain. And next week, she's going to talk about how it can help parents, and the week after that, how it can help kids. So make sure you listen to all 3 of these episodes as they come out. We're really excited to have Joanne here today, so let's get into it. All right, hi Joanne, and welcome here to our podcast. We're really glad to have you on here today, and I'm really excited for you to tell us all about brainwave optimization. So do you want to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you and what you do?
Good morning, Karen. I'm Joanne Couture from Winnipeg, marriage and family therapist. So I'm a registered marriage and family therapist with 20 years of experience. So very much trained in systems, talk therapy approach with different types of approaches that help people to better understand why they react in different ways. And while I was doing that, training and working with clients, I could also see how even talking about it and understanding what was going on for them, people were still not congruent with the choices they were wanting to make because they were reacting to things and not really making those choices that in session they were saying, yeah, I know what to do. So that had me doing a lot more research on trauma and reading books by Bessel van der Kolk, Robert Scare, Daniel Siegel. I mean, I'm sure you've got Daniel Siegel.
All the good ones.
Yep. Gabor Mate, our Canadian expert, Norman Doidge. Those are all experts I've read and keep on following. So in 2009, I discovered brainwave optimization and got training, and I've been doing that, adding that to in my office as to get to layers that we usually can't consciously. So
right.
Brain State Technologies is based out of Scottsdale, Arizona, and they're a young company. They're only 2004, so we're young as a technology. And you know how things are when things are young. It's hard to get people to believe that it's not some weird stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're here to talk about it to help people understand that this is beneficial.
Yeah, this is great. So this is the first of a 3-part series we're going to do. So this first one, I want you just to tell us all about what brainwave optimization is, what it does for our brains, and how it can be helpful.
Okay. So to be able to even start talking about brainwave optimization, we have to, I think I need to talk about the field of neurotechnology, because neurotechnology is all about approaches that read the electrical energy of the brain and use different approaches to address the imbalances that one would read there. So brainwave optimization specifically reads brainwave activity using sensors, just like a stethoscope on your chest. It just reads the activity in your brain, takes the data to a software, and then translates that information into sounds or tones. So it's really an acoustic brain mirroring process. That's a mouthful. So when the brain is read, it that information comes back in tones in the same way that when you're tuning a fork, or if you tap a tuning fork and you have the same frequency of tuning fork beside it, when I tap one, the other will also resonate. That transfer, it's a frequency resonance that causes or brings about changes in the brain. So it is the neuron activity that is helping the next neuron to activate. So brainwave optimization is a non-invasive process using brain-initiated sounds to relax brain functions, because when it hears itself, it starts to just relax.
Right.
So it's, that's a short version.
Yeah.
So quite often, when we live with anxiety, depression, ADHD, PTSD, or any health issue, we often hear ourselves saying, I just can't think like I used to, or I can't focus. I can't get myself going. I don't have any energy to spare. And that's right away in the morning, like, okay. Or I feel hyper all the time, and so hyper that at night I can't sleep. I just can't turn my head off. My brain, it just runs. People say, I don't even want to be around people. I can't seem to enjoy anything, that flat mode. So anytime I hear that now, I don't go into the talk therapy approach of saying what's going on. My brain goes right away to, there's got to be something wrong here with somebody's brain function. So it's just that it's like my car. If I take the hands off the steering wheel and it heads for the ditch, there's nothing wrong with the car. When we can't manage things anymore, when we can't sleep, when we start having blood pressure issues, things are, and in those cases, we usually go see the doctor, who says, oh yeah, you've got a chemical imbalance, so let's use a medication to bring things back into balance. Well, lo and behold, before pharmaceuticals was the go-to treatment, believe it or not, neurotechnology approaches that measure brain frequencies were showing promise in retraining the electrical imbalances in the brain. These electrical imbalances of stuck patterns that were reflected in some of the readings. So when I look at the readings, there are certain patterns for anxiety. There are certain patterns for depression. Things show up in the frequencies. ADHD. So what happens is, we know all our dear athletes who use steroids for faster results in their training and performance. When we use a medication for a diagnosed chemical imbalance, there are immediate results. Yes. However, sometimes they're only sustained by more meds. So when we address the electrical imbalances with brainwave optimization, we're actually building brain resiliency through brain mirroring by helping that brain relax. And when that happens, the chemical imbalances sort themselves out. So it's not a quick fix. But most clients who come to brainwave optimization see it more as giving you a jump start into this process of balancing the frequencies. It gives you an opportunity to, it's like a catalyst, so that brain can shift back and bring it back on the road here, so that I can drive and live my life.
Right. Yeah.
So, having said that, medication is important. Depending on different situations, we do need, in the same way as I need a cast when I break my leg. I need it. And it should be for a certain amount of time. So that's always a conversation you want to have with your doctor. It's like, you do need to consult with your doctor and follow through on that. But be aware that not many doctors are trained in neurotechnology benefits, and not many know the benefits of balancing electrical function of the brain. So they're just trained in pharmaceuticals. Mm-hmm. So, keep that in mind as you do your research. It's tricky.
Yeah.
So when we're thinking of the brain, that's where we consciously make decisions. That's what uses us. That's what helps us make decisions. So when I'm making decisions and I'm not proud of, that usually means that my brain function has been compromised. I'm reacting with impulsivity without thinking of the consequences, or I might be just numb. Just something happens and I don't know what to say. I can't even defend myself when somebody hurts me. So that's usually a sign that brain isn't in balance. The right side, which is the emotional side, the left side, which is the logical side. So with brainwave optimization, what we do is we help the brain help you manage stress so you can have higher levels of well-being throughout your whole life. And again, it's not a quick fix or a cure. It's just about helping that brain help its own brain function to flow. When I can flow, when you look at athletes on the floor, they're just, so running a marathon, at one point, it's just like, oh, am I ever going to get through it? And then all of a sudden something shifts and they just take off. They just flow. And that's where we want to be without being pulled off track into any symptomology. So brainwave optimization is sort of like an inside-out approach because it is from the brain waves themselves that things change, which is very different from counseling or medication or rehab, where you have a lot of cognitive behavioral training and awareness raising. It's a process where you can see changes in real time, because when people come, we actually look at real-time graphs. You sit down 10 minutes with some training, and in those 10 minutes, we actually record the activity, and we can see what's shifting in the brain, and then it's up to the client to be able to say, okay, well, that's why I'm sleeping better. The clients say, we look at the graphs and they say, oh, okay. Sometimes, worry becomes more manageable. Anxiety is overcome. Sometimes they might have better memory, and we'll actually see it in the graphs and say, here's what's going on, and here's what and they say, well, yeah, like, no wonder I felt like this or whatever. So it's kind of neat.
And then you're talking about seeing it in real time. And I remember when I was there a year ago doing the brainwave optimization, the before and after graphs that you printed out for me was really amazing to look at, because I knew I could feel different. But to actually see it on paper, that this is what my brain looked like 4 days ago, and this is what it looks like now. Yeah. And that made a really big difference. And it kind of made me realize more that it was an actual brain functioning thing and not just, something I was making up or something I thought I was feeling. Yeah,
exactly. It confirms. A lot of people feel affirmed and confirmed because, I've had clients come in and say, I've gone in, to the psych unit, and I tell them what I'm sensing or feeling, and it's disregarded because it doesn't fit into their squares. Yeah. So here, it's like, there is an imbalance. Okay, so let's work at it. Yeah. And they just people feel affirmed. They do. Yeah. And at the same time, they then have to get to work.
Yes. There's that part too.
Yeah. Sure, you can, run 10 blocks, but if you want to do the marathon, you've got, a few more blocks to run before you can do that 26 miles.
Exactly. Yeah. And then you had a list here, some of the changes people start to see after doing the sessions. Do you want to quickly talk about those?
Well, the first thing that, everywhere we read about is when people can't sleep, their brain can't stop. They even though they've stopped drinking coffee during the day because they know that caffeine affects them. So there's always that balance of nutritionally, what am I doing? What am I putting in my body? MSG if I have any MSG, I know I'm not going to sleep that night. Okay, so it is about really being aware of what's going on in my body. So some people who have done that may do brainwave optimization and then be able to sleep, because the brain function itself gets a chance to come out of lockdown or come out of, so there's a shifting, because we're working those neural networks. When a neural, that frequency resonance causes those neurons to branch out. So it's spring right now. We're going to be doing, I have a sister-in-law who's in a greenhouse. Well, you do cuttings and you put it in powder, and you want those roots. The better the roots, the thicker the roots, the better the plant. The thicker the neurons, the thicker the branches, the more options you have. So sleep is going to be, most people sleep in my chair.
Yeah.
When people come here, they actually sit in a chair, in a relaxed, easy chair type space.
It's a very comfy chair.
It's quiet. It's not about yada yada talking. Once we start the process, it's sitting in this chair, listening to your brain making sounds that helps your brain relax. And when that happens, most people end up sleeping in this chair. No matter how activated they are. Might not be the first session, might not be the second, but by the fourth session, guaranteed, most of them, I would say 90% of people are sleeping.
Yeah.
And snoring. They're not just they're snoring. So to me, that's always a good sign. So sleep for sure. And then we have to be careful with sleep, because when you think of the circadian rhythm, in sleep is when our body does its cleaning out and sorting of things. So when we've done brainwave optimization, sometimes it may activate those systems that we're not, when the head gets out of the way, the body can do its job. So when my head is quiet, then my organs, my liver, especially the liver, between 1 and 3 o'clock in the morning, a lot of times that's when we wake up, because our liver is just working too hard. So we have to be attentive of that circadian rhythm. And after brainwave optimization, some people might be awake, might wake up for 2-3 days or a week after, because their body is doing the work it couldn't do before.
Right.
And then it settles down. But most people, sometimes I do an introductory session, which is just 12 minutes of training. Some people notice a difference in their sleep just after that. I'll call them 2-3 days later, and they say, well, you know what? I really slept well that night. So everybody is different. Everybody has to, read it differently according to their body and what their body needs.
Yeah.
It's a very personal, it's a very individual approach. Individualized, I guess is the word I should say.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And then a couple questions I wanted to ask. What does a typical session look like? If someone was to book a session with you and come in, what does that time look like?
Like anything else, there's always paperwork to fill out. And then we sort of work at what are your objectives? What are the main things that you're struggling with? So we sort of have a clarity on that, without it being a medical diagnosis, or because I don't have a medical background, but it's about clarity about Is it energy wise that you're looking for? What part of your system is needing support? So energy, mood, sleep, stress management, or thinking abilities. A lot of times with regard to thinking abilities, I'm going into something else there, but so we look at those goals. What is it that we're wanting to look at? And then we actually sit the person in the chair, put sensors. We use a 4-sensor reading approach so that, and we use the EEG placements. Anybody that does EEG, electroencephalic mirror, it's
some long word.
Exactly. So I put placements. I put the sensors there with some paste so that they stick. And you relax in a chair. The computer software gathers the information, and we actually look at graphs right away, just from the gathering of information. And it gives us a sense right away of where things are at. And then we just lie back and get to work. And the work is just you laying in a chair with sensors, waiting or listening to your brain, creating sounds that are reflected back to you. So it's your own brain giving information. That information is reflected back to you in real time. So it's not like sitting on the piano and doing scores or whatever, but your brain activity and we do that for 10, 15 minutes. Take a pause, and then we move the sensors to another part of the brain. The one thing, the advantage of sessions here is that the whole brain gets attention. Because we want not only the right brain and the left brain to be able to balance each other, but we also want the front of the brain, which is executive functioning, with the back of the brain, which is receiving information from our body through the brain stem. So those two parts also have to work, and given an opportunity to shift.
Right.
And once we've done the sessions, clean off the sensors, and we look at graphs. Plan for the next session. So people come for an hour and a half. There's always at least an hour in that of complete training. Like you're in the chair, it's quiet in the room, you're listening to your brain making sounds. So, and then there's coaching, like, how do you sustain those changes? So I'm considered sometimes like a brain coach, because you're helping that brain and you to understand your brain so that you can walk forward with it. Yeah.
And then how many sessions do you usually recommend kind of as a starting or a
baseline?
Yeah.
For a baseline, we recommend 4 sessions. And again, they're depending on the person. If somebody's doing pretty well, their immune system is good, chronic issues aren't too big, we might do 1 session on each of 4 days. So some people come in Monday to Thursday or Tuesday to Friday, or I work on weekends as well. So 4 days straight. I usually invite people to consider that week their brain spa week, where they really give themselves a chance to take time to do a retreat, a holiday for themselves. That's not always possible. Some people don't go back to work after their training. But other people whose health is compromised to a certain extent, we might do it every 2 days.
Right.
Or 2 on a weekend and 2 the next weekend. Depending on a person's schedule, 4 sessions according to the person's capacity is what I would say.
Right.
And that gives you a good baseline. It gives the brain a chance to start to branch those neurons to branch out. And once they're branched, so that's the whole idea. When you have, you work with kids, their brain is crazy busy with neuron connectivity. Like that's why they learn so fast. Children have more neurons and more neuron connections than we do as adults. Our brain has been pruned into, Joanne speaks English, she speaks French, I don't speak Chinese. My brain has not been changed, okay? But I have those pathways.
Right.
Children's pathways are just waiting to be aligned and pruned. So with brainwave optimization, we are branching out so that then you can build on those. It wasn't there before.
Yeah.
That's kind of intriguing.
It's a good way to explain it, yeah. And then just one last question I want to ask you before we close off this episode is, how can people get a hold of you if they want more information about this or if they're interested in booking sessions with you?
Okay. The first thing is give me a phone call. That's one way. Mm-hmm. So I use my phone as an answering machine in the sense that when I'm with clients, that's not a time for, so leave a message. And I'm at 204-612-1579. So that's 1579 at 612. Leave a message. I also have a website, and I'm at Laloba Services, Laloba, Laloba, which is a Mexican legend. I
wondered about that.
Yeah, Laloba is a legend about a hermit woman who lives in the desert, whose main pastime is collecting bones. And as she collects bones, she brings them together, lays them out, and when she gets all the bones, she builds a fire and starts to sing. And as she sings, sinew, muscle, organs, skin, fur start to rejuvenate onto these bones. And at one point in her song, the wolf takes a deep breath, stands, howls, and takes off into the desert, which was my hope for clients when they come to Laloba Services, that they can have an opportunity to gather their bones and find new life and live their life, go run down the desert. So it's Laloba Services.
That's perfect.
Yeah. So check my website as well. Just check Laloba Services and
okay. Yeah, that's great. And we'll put all of that information also at the bottom of our podcast so people can find you. Hopefully everybody does.
Oh yeah. With our computer techies and computer experts out there, just ask the kids. If you don't know, ask the kids.
Your kids will find it. Exactly. Yeah. All right. So thank you very much for doing this interview. It's really exciting. And our next one's going to be how it can help parents.
Look forward to it. Thanks, Karen.
All right, that brings us to the end of the first part of our interview with Joanne about brainwave optimization. Make sure you check back in next week for when she talks about how it will help parents, and the week after that for how brainwave optimization can benefit our kids. So there will be episodes 15 and 16 coming up. So thank you for joining us here today on this episode. Make sure you check out our description for more information on Joanne and Laloba Services, as well as brainwave optimization. And there's also information about our podcast and about the Radish Ranch down there. Be sure you're subscribed to our channel and turn on the notifications so you can get our episodes straight to your inbox every Tuesday morning. And if you haven't already, make sure you also check out our other social media. We have a Facebook page and an Instagram account, and we post on there mostly on a daily basis. The songs on our podcast are The Way Things Go and Come Down, both written and recorded by French Press, and we use them here with their permission. This Is My Story is brought to you by the Radish Ranch. I'm your host, Karen Poitras, and I will see you next week. Stay awesome.